Namaskar. Today, let us take a look at Chandogya Upanishad, the last Upanishad in this series of 10 principal Upanishads. Tattvamasi is the famous doctrine herein. This Upanishad includes important upasanas and vidyas such as Gayatri, Panchagni, etc. Chandogya Upanishad also includes famous stories such as Satyakama Jabala Katha and Indra Virochana Katha. However, today I am going to focus on some important aspects of this Upanishad. Let us begin with the name of the Upanishad. The word Chandogya is related to the word Chandoga. This Upanishad belongs to Samaveda and hence one needs to give a thought to this. Those who sing metered mantras, that is Chandobaddha mantras, are the Samavedins. This Upanishad belongs to their branch and hence it is called Chandogya. Now let us understand the difference between reciting and singing mantras. Mantras in all the four Vedas are composed in meters where the number of letters is predetermined. Since the mantras of Samaveda are sung, there are 7 notes, saptaswaras used. It is the origin of Indian musical tradition and each saman is a different melodious pattern. These are like varied musical patterns of the same mantra. Uttering of Omkara and singing these musical patterns, that is samans, is very important because Udgata, who sings in a high scale, is the Purohita or the priest, one who conducts the ritual. And since Omkara is sung on a high note, it is known as Udgitha. Chandogya Upanishad opens with this declaration that Omkara is the Udgitha. It says, Om iti etad aksharam udgitham upasita Om iti hi udgayati tasyopa vyakhyanam. One should meditate on this letter Om, which is the Udgitha. Discussion about Udgitha gradually explains the principles. We have seen earlier in this series on Upanishads that Jagat is an important topic from the 3 topics Jiva, Jagat and Jaganniyanta. We saw in Mundaka, Prashna, Taittiriya and other Upanishads too that while discussing the universal form that is Vishwarupa, all the principles are interwoven like a chain and one principle evolves from the other. In Chandogya, one chain shows that essence of one principle is the next principle. Let us now take a look at that chain. This chain begins with living beings, that is Bhutamatra. The essence of living beings is earth. Essence of earth is water. Essence of water is plants and herbs or Oshadhi. And essence of Oshadhi is Purusha. Essence of Purusha is Vani, that is speech. Essence of speech is Ruk mantras, that is mantras of Rigveda. And essence of mantras of Rigveda is Saman, the mantras of Samaveda. And finally, essence of Saman is Udgitha, that is Omkara, sung in Samaveda. I would like to tell here that Rigveda and Samaveda are in a close relation because we can say 2/3 of the Samans are originally mantras from the Rigveda. When mantras in Rigveda are sung, they become mantras in Samaveda. Though all Upanishads unfold in a chain, this chain discussed here, which reached the Udgitha, ultimately shows how closely Rigveda and Samaveda are connected. The chain that begins with living things and reaches Udgitha covers Rigvedic mantras in between. In short, Omkara is the essence of all the principles. We have looked at the origin of this universe from different perspectives propounded by different Upanishads. Udgitha is at the core of this Upanishad of the Samaveda. Before taking this discussion further, I want to make an important point. It is important not just in reference to Chandogya Upanishad, but also because this is the last part of the series of Upanishads. We had seen in the first episode that studying Upanishads is a journey from ritual to spiritual. In the second episode, we saw that rituals in the Vedas and its philosophy unite in the Upanishads. I would also like to mention here that Samagana cannot be performed anytime, anywhere like other forms of music. Mantras in Samaveda are sung only and only in Yajna, and they are never sung casually anytime. They are closely bound to rituals. And in the Chandogya Upanishad, these ritualistic principles are interpreted with philosophical connotations. So we can see that major spiritual content of the Samavedic elements can be seen in the Chandogya Upanishad. We have discussed about Udgita in the same manner. This is the peculiarity of Upanishads and even of Chandogya Upanishad. Let us see now another important point, Stobha. Stobha is an important characteristic feature of Samaveda. Apart from hymns in Rigveda and other original mantras from Samaveda, there are words such as hau, hai, him, which are different even than the typical pattern of Vedic Sanskrit words. These are sung in the recitation of Samans. The speciality is that Samagana isn't considered to be complete without singing of these stobhas. The meaning of these stobhas is given in the Chandogya Upanishad. This Upanishad discusses philosophical interpretation of the rituals in Vedas. This discussion occurs in the 13th section of the first chapter, which says, Hau means loka or worlds, Hai means Vayu, Atha means Chandrama, E sound is Agni, that is fire, and sound U is Aditya. Thus, Chandogya explains not just the words but also letters, that is, varnas in the stobhas. This discussion is pretty deep and we shall take a look at it some other time. The important point that I want to make here is that an important aspect with respect to language and philosophy too is explained in Chandogya Upanishad, and it tries to explain spiritual content. What I want to underline is those words in the Samans that are sung during rituals but are not understood easily are explained here in the Chandogya Upanishad. This is important because Upanishad is that which makes things meaningful, those apparently look like meaningless, and this, according to me, is the importance of Upanishads. Another important characteristic of Chandogya Upanishad is that one gets the answers to several fundamental questions in the theoretical discussions raised in the Upanishads. We took a look just now on the discussion about Jagat. Now let us see what Chandogya has to say about Atman and Brahman. We have seen earlier in the series what is Brahman and have tried to understand its definitions. Chandogya Upanishad has defined Brahman comprehensively. This definition is nothing else but the famous doctrine Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. Everything is Brahma. One of the fundamental questions raised by a human being is, what is it where he lives? What are the movable and immovable, living and non-living things around him? What are other living beings like him? Or animals, air, water, light, food, all the elements? What are all these things? The answer to this question is everything, absolutely everything is Brahma. Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. The second eternal question that a human being has is, who am I? Though he feels that I means my body, when the body sleeps, who is it that is awake? Or who is it that experiences happiness and grief? Sometimes these are beyond the body. Then who is it that experiences all this? A thoughtful Marathi poet like Roy Kinikar says, Ha deha tujha pan dehatil tu kon. It means this body is yours, but who are you within that body? In the Aruni Shvetaketu dialogue that occurs in the 6th Adhyaya of Chandogya Upanishad, this same question is answered. Let us see that. Shvetaketu requested his father Aruni to give him knowledge. Aruni explains several things to him, and during that discussion, while explaining what is the original form of a being, Aruni tells Shvetaketu, Tattvamasi. If someone asks, who are you? The real you. The answer is Tat Tvam Asi. That is you. This naturally generates the question, what is that or tat in the sentence Tatvamasi? Aruni explains this with 5 examples such as Madhu Drushtanta, Vruksha Drushtanta, or Lavana Drushtanta. This discussion is not only beautiful and profound, but it also gives us one of the primary doctrines of the Upanishads, Tatvamasi. The Upanishad states, "Sa ya esho anima, etad atmyam idam sarvam, tat satyam, sa atma tatvamasi." That which is this subtle essence, all this has got that as the self, that is Satya, that is Atman, you are that. Let us discuss this sentence in detail. Sa Atma Tat Tvamasi. The Atman, that is you. Then how is the Atman? Which is as minute as an atom, Anima. That is Atman, which is you. Everything originates from there and dissolves therein. That is Atman, which is you. The Atman is Satya, and that Atman is you. You are the Atma Tattva, means Tat Tvam Asi. Everybody has Atman. Aruni explains this statement to Shvetaketu. As I mentioned, there are 5 examples for this Mahavakya. Let us take a look at the first one, the one of honey and honeybees, Madhu Drushtanta. Aruni elaborates that when the honeybees prepare honey, they collect the juices of various trees or flowers and bring it together and make honey out of it. Though this juice is from different trees, it is the same. When honey is prepared, we cannot segregate the component juices. Similarly, Atma Tattva in all living beings is the same. And O Shvetaketu, you are that Atma Tattva, Tat Tvam Asi. Shvetaketu is not satisfied by this explanation. So he requests his father to explain in even more detail again. So the second example that Aruni gives is of rivers and the sea. He says, east-going rivers flow to the east and west-going rivers flow to the west. This means both of these types are opposite in flow, but ultimately all rivers merge with the ocean. From the sea, they again in the form of vapor reach the rivers and again unite in the sea. Once they mix with the sea, water cannot be separated or segregated. No distinction is possible there. Atma Tattva is the same. Everything originates from there and again merges with it. And you are that Atma Tattva, Tat Tvamasi. This example too did not satiate Shvetaketu's doubts. It is but natural because the topic itself is difficult. So Shvetaketu requested his father to explain again. Aruni then used the example of a tree, Vruksha Drushtanta. While explaining this concept, he explained the relation between Atma, body, Mrityu or death, and explained what is eternal and what is temporary. The style of Upanishads to explain such profound philosophy in a simple manner is indeed laudable, and this Upanishad is testimony to this fact. So, Aruni tells Shvetaketu that if one strikes on any part of a tree, upper, lower, or mid, rasa, sap oozes out. Wherever you strike, the rasa, sap that comes out is the same because that tree is full of sap of liveliness, which is the Atman. But when its branches and gradually the whole tree starts withering away, a blow can generate no sap because it lacks Atma Tattva. Similarly, death or Mrityu kills a person's body. The body becomes lifeless, but life does not die. Atma never dies. Like the tree, the body dies, but the Atma Tattva within remain eternally alive. The Atman is immortal, and that immortal element is you, Tat Tvamasi. On hearing this, Shvetaketu expressed his wish to learn even more. At that time, Aruni gave the example of a banyan tree. You might remember the Sanskrit verse that I quoted before opening this discussion of Tatvamasi. The five words that explain Atma Tattva in the shloka are as if the manifestations of these five examples. The word anima means that the Atma Tattva is as minute as an atom. That is now described. If the Atma Tattva is as minute as an atom, one may raise the question. On the one hand, it is said that Atma Tattva is as little or subtle as an atom. And on the other hand, it is said that it encompasses everything. How can this be possible? This question is very obvious, but the writers of Upanishads answer this query through the example of the banyan tree by explaining the grandeur, that is Mahima, of the word Anima. So, Aruni asked Shvetaketu to get him a fruit of the banyan tree, Nyagrodha Vruksha, and asks him to break it. When Shvetaketu does so, Aruni tells him that there are several small seeds in the banyan fruit that are like atoms. Aruni further says that the seeds are so small that if they are broken, nothing can be seen inside. But when the same seed is sown, it gives birth to a huge tree that has branches, leaves, fruits, and flowers. The Atma Tattva is exactly like this seed. Nothing is seen within it, but it has the potential to create this entire universe. The atom like Atman that encompasses everything is nothing but you, Shvetaketu. Tat Tvam Asi. Atma Tattva is everywhere and all encompassing. To explain it further, Aruni asked Shvetaketu to get some salt. The style of explanation is beautiful too. This entire discussion unfolds through dialogues and a different topic is thereby made simple. The discussion thus becomes interesting too. Shvetaketu gets the salt as directed by Aruni. He then tells Shvetaketu to put that salt in a glass of water at night and get the glass to him the next morning. Another important point to be noted here is that in order to secure knowledge, one needs to have patience and readiness for waiting. Aruni could have immediately explained through the example of salt and water, but Aruni asked Shvetaketu to soak the salt overnight and get it to him on the next day. Through this, he also wants to check how eager Shvetaketu is to get knowledge. We get this message here that when one has to understand something or acquire something, patience is very important. So, Shvetaketu has great longing for knowledge and therefore he obeys the orders meticulously and gets the glass to his father on the next morning. Aruni then asks him, "Can you see the salt that you put in yesterday? It won't be seen. It won't be seen now, but if you want to experience it, you will have to drink the water." Aruni adds that Shvetaketu should first drink water from the top part of the glass and he asks, "How is the taste?" Shvetaketu says, "Naturally, it tastes salty." Then Aruni asks him to taste water from the center of the glass and asks, "Does it taste salty?" Of course, yes. Then Aruni asks him to test the water from the bottom part of the glass and again asks, "Is it salty?" Of course, it was salty. Since salt has completely dissolved in the glass, every part or every drop of water will have the taste of salt. What Aruni tells Shvetaketu thereafter is very important. The salt in this water cannot be seen, but it is continuously present. The principle of Sat is similar. Word Sat has appeared in the explanation of the Atma Tattva earlier. Satya was the word used in the explanation along with Anima. This is an example of that word. Like the salt, the eternally omnipresent element is Satya and Satya is the Atma. That Satya and that Atma Tattva is you, Shvetaketu. The atom-like element present everywhere that is true is nothing but you, Shvetaketu. Tat Tvam Asi. Chandogya Upanishad, with reference to the doctrine Tat Tvam Asi and all the five examples, almost summarizes the entire knowledgeable discussion. So, this was an overview of Chandogya Upanishad. Its expanse is vast, but we have seen it in brief. This is the final Upanishad in our series of 10 principal Upanishads. Though this is the last part of the series, I won't say that this is the end of the discussion because through this series, we have actually begun a quest of knowledge which will continue further too. I think there cannot be an end or conclusion to the Upanishads. Though we sum up this discussion in this series, we have discussed sentences like Tatvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma, Tadvratam, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma or Prajnanam Brahma. And such doctrines are composed of two, three, or more words together, but they are an Upanishad in themselves. Seeing how deep these sentences are in meaning, each sentence can be rightfully called to be Upanishad. Even if we can understand a little bit, it is pretty holistic because, in the first place, knowledge itself is holistic, complete, Purna. Even getting a little will lead man to completeness, Purnatva. So, to conclude this series, I wish the completeness or Purnatva of knowledge for all of you and take your leave with a mantra that expresses this completeness, the Purnatva. ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णम् उदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते इति शम्